So now that the election is over, I think we need to refocus. I think that we need to rethink um, how we achieve the goal. And for me, the goal is economic independence. It's closing the racial wealth gap. How do we refocus the conversation and the energy and the efforts to giving our community economic viability, right? Everything else, I don't think that we should be rallying around any type of social issues. I think as a community, our focus has to be how do we become economically independent? How do we create more opportunities within our community so that we are less dependent on people and entities and organizations that don't always have our best interests, right? To me, that's the goal. What is the plan for economic independence? And I don't think it starts from the top down. I think it starts from the bottom up. We keep waiting on a leader or a messiah, somebody to come and galvanize us and energize us and inspire us. But what we learned is that all of our leaders have been compromised. Once they figured out that they can compromise us, all of our leaders have been compromised. Their message has not been authentically in our favor. And so nobody's coming. Right? Nobody's coming from the top down to change and to save our circumstances. It's something I learned a long time ago. If you want to change the growth, the direction and the health of a tree, you don't manipulate the leaves. You don't shake at the branches. You don't move the twigs. If you want to change the course and the direction and the health of a tree, you manipulate the roots. You attack the roots. You start from the bottom. If a tree is not growing healthy, if it's lacking in certain areas, you do not manipulate the leaves and the branches. You attack the roots. And so if we want to change our circumstances, it's not going to come from the top down. It's going to come from the bottom up, right? We have to start with what we believe and think about ourselves, how we interact with our family, what we prioritize, how we interact with one another, right? What we spend our money on. Collectively, we have to make a decision that we're going to have a standard. We're going to have a standard in our economic standard in our community of what is acceptable. And I think that starts with our children. Right? Nobody brought up the fact that 85% of our children cannot read or write or do math. 85% of the children in our inner cities, the young black boys and girls, 85% of them cannot read or write or do math. That's unacceptable. Because what are we talking about if we are championing and fighting for and giving all of our energy and efforts for social justice, for economic justice, if 85% of our children are not going to be able to benefit from it because they can't even read or write? Then what are we doing it for? That's my question. And so we have to start at the source. It starts within our own communities. We have to set a standard for our children, for the children in our family, for the children in our community, that we are not going to accept us letting you out into the world unprepared. If you cannot read, write, or do basic math, you are unprepared for society. You cannot compete in society. You have no viable options or skills, and you are relegated to the slave class. We do not want that for our children. That only leaves 15% of us that even have a fighting chance. And of that 15%, now we have to deal with all of these other expectations and challenges that life brings us, to where the final percentage of us that actually are able to benefit from all this world has to offer is so minuscule that it does not even matter. And so it starts with opening up the opportunity for our young people. We have to have a standard. Right now, all of our energy, efforts, and resources should be going to educating our children. Any billions of dollars that we want to send to this community, it should be going directly to improving the literacy of our children. And along with that, we need to be looking at how we get men back into schools. It's children that will never ever experience having a male teacher, let alone a black male teacher. And I promise you, getting black men back in the schools in some way, even if it's on a part-time basis, but not just coaching and athletics, getting them back in the classroom, teaching children, I guarantee you will have a direct correlation with the improvement in the education system. I don't care if it's a program where you bring men in there once a week, or whatever we got to do to get men back teaching our children, especially in our inner cities. I guarantee you that'll have a direct connection and correlation with the improvement of literacy in our schools. But we got to prioritize that. That cannot be on the back burner. We cannot just say let the education system do it, let the states do it. No, I don't trust the states to educate my children. My children will go into the school already educated. My children are going to go into the school in the classroom already prepared, already knowledgeable, already know how to think for themselves. I don't trust the education system to prepare my children. That is my job. That is my wife's job. That's the job of the family, to prepare the children for what they're going to see in the world. And so we need to take that same kind of ownership, not just in our household, but even beyond that in our community. What resources do we have that we need to get our children educated? That's the number one priority. That is going to open up the floodgates for, as fast as this world is changing. If you can't do the basics, you will be ill prepared for what is coming in this new economy. And so I think that's the number one priority. The second priority is we need to heal. Like, we really need to heal. As a community, we are more divided than I've ever seen in my life. The women and the men hate one another. The old school and the young school hate one another. Religions hate one another. Classes hate one another. Like, we're more divided within our community than any opposition that we have among any other group of people. And we really need to heal from that. If all of us got a check right now for reparations, that's not going to heal the pain in our heart. That's not going to heal the broken relationships that we've suffered or that we've created. That's not going to heal the trauma that we dealing with, that we express to each other every day on social media. We're just going to have more zeros in our account, but it's not going to change our mindset. It's not going to change our consumerism mentality. You're not going to all of a sudden become a responsible person just because you get a check with some money. And so we need to heal, man. We really, really need to heal. Like, I say this all the time. The person that hurt you cannot heal you. The person that hurt you cannot heal you. If somebody cuts you with a knife, the moment that knife pierces your skin, the moment it does damage, it becomes powerless in repairing that damage. The knife cannot take back what it did. It cannot heal that wound. Instead, what happens is that the body replenishes itself, right? The skin heals, right? The blood reforms and reorganizes itself, right? The body starts to regenerate and replenish itself. The body heals from within. The knife can't heal it. Even though it caused the pain, it can't heal it. The body heals from within. And our hearts, our minds, our souls are the same way. The person that hurt you cannot heal you. And so somebody broke your heart, somebody hurt you, somebody betrayed you, somebody did you wrong. Once they commit that betrayal, there's nothing they can do to heal the pain. You have to heal from within. Your mind, your body, your spirit has to regenerate and replenish itself, reorganize itself, reform itself, and it has to heal from within. And that starts with forgiveness. Once you learn how to forgive, now you release the responsibility from yourself to have to feel ill will to this person. Forgiveness is not for that person. It is for you to release them of any debt. Because as long as you're holding on to a debt, they can't pay back the debt. The person that hurt you can't heal you. And so you're never going to get paid back. And as long as you're holding on to that hurt, that anger, as long as you're holding on to the debt, you're holding the debt. You're holding a debt that you'll never be able to get back. And so, we need to heal as a community, right? We need to show forgiveness to one another. We just need to recalibrate. We need to recalibrate. I mean, we're so scared to be in relationships, right? Because of one or two heartbreaks, right? But we all are souls on this earth. You know what I mean? Looking for love, looking for purpose and position. We don't hate one another, but society is driving us to think that we are a threat to one another. We've survived on this earth for thousands of years together through natural disasters, from all kinds of things. We love one another, right? But the world is trying to take that from us, especially in our community. And it is to our detriment, because what's happening is we have a successful class of people, but they all doing it by themselves, right? And then there's no commingling of minds. There's no working together, and so the success is counterproductive. Our success is counterproductive because it's not lifting up everybody. It's actually built on other people staying down, right? So one or two people can stay up. That's what our culture has been built on. We have to recalibrate that, right? It does not have to be a zero-sum game in our community. We have to think collectively, right? We have to think like, how can I add value and gain value? Right now we have this hustler's mentality towards one another. And that's why we can't trust one another. All of that needs to be recalibrated. The entire standard of how we interact with one another, how we deal with one another, needs to be recalibrated, right? We can't look at one another and see another black man as competition. You know what I mean? And we see him and just automatically, without knowing anything about him, instead of seeing him as an asset, as someone, that at the end of the day, you have a connection. We see each other as a threat. And it can't be like that. We have to have a new standard of how we interact with one another, how we communicate with one another, what we prioritize, where we spend our money, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to start from the bottom up, right? But this is the thing. It only takes a tipping point. It only takes a tipping point. It doesn't take the majority of people, to change our community. It doesn't take the majority of people. It only takes a tipping point. It takes a select committed, strong, resilient few to change the entire trajectory of an entire community. But it starts from the bottom up. It starts as wealth creators collaborate, right? You may be the only person in your family, that's trying to achieve something, that's trying to do something. In my opinion, then you're a wealth creator. You're trying to create, you're trying to create value, right? That can take care of you and your family. If you're that person, then that bears a lot of responsibility, right? And as wealth creators collaborate, the goal is for us to share information, right? To think of one another as peers, as colleagues. As I get information on how to improve my circumstances, I am open and free with that with everybody, because I want you to know the same thing. I want you to have the same information I have. I'm an open book. And as long as we have that mentality among the people that we congregate with, and the conversations that we're having are geared towards how can we help one another? How can we add value to one another? What are you doing different? Now we take that information and improve ourselves as wealth creators. And now we can connect the dots generationally, connect the dots vertically. We can reach up to the generation above us, who a lot of times were ignorant to a lot of the things that we just know as fact now. That information was not available for the generations before us. So it's time for us to reach to them and take ownership and leadership in our families, and make sure that they prioritize their legacies and their futures, right? Teach them how to do things the right way. Make sure that the transfer of value and the transfer of generational wealth is done properly. Heal those relationships as much as possible, just so that you can connect the dots to yourself generationally. Because and then lastly, now we can reach down to our children, right? And share all of this knowledge and wisdom that we're gaining and information that we're gaining, right? From our peers, from the connection in our generations, and we can impart that into our children and give them the full breadth and depth of what generational wealth actually is. That's how we change our communities from the inside out. If you're a wealth creator, you are sharing ideas, right? You have a select group of people where you talk about economic viability and how to improve your circumstances, right? And all of that knowledge that you gain from those interactions, now you use to connect the dots with your family vertically, right? And the more successful you become, you start the conversations about how to pass this stuff down, how to connect it, how to connect the dots, right? And you impart that wisdom into your children vertically, and you help them establish themselves well before you. It just take a change in mindset. And I just don't want anything too bad to happen before that happens, because see, this is how we used to be. If you talk to anybody that was living in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s before civil rights, yes, there was Jim Crow and there was integration, but we had our own communities and we had thriving businesses amongst ourselves where we didn't need anybody else's money. We had our own laundromats and restaurants in our own communities. We were just limited because we could not participate in other people's economy, but we had our own economy. I hear stories all the time. I had a great uncle that owned a famous laundromat and cleaners, and all of the singers and used to come to town, used to come to his laundromat to get all of their costumes and stuff. They had thriving businesses in the hood back then, all through black neighborhoods, thriving businesses. We already had that mentality, and they took it away from us. So the question is, how do we get it back? How do we get it back? We had that mentality. In the 50s, we owned over 21 million acres of land in this country, and we've given it all away. We've squandered it. Now we own less than a third of that. So we had the mentality of togetherness. How did we lose it? That's the question. But the bigger question is, how do we get it back? Because we understand the things that were done to us, the propaganda that was fed to us, the lies that we consumed that took that away from us. But the question is, how do we get it back? And it starts with a standard. We have to have a standard of how we interact with one another. And we have to prioritize educating our children. Let's get it, man. You are the wealth.